never before met any deaf person till I started learning sign language. And why deaf people? Well, I've always had a dream that I wanted to start a school. I'm very good with my hands, but family responsibilities, etc., and how we put everything in the back burner got delayed. And then one day I saw on the TV channel there was this lady on a Sunday afternoon. She was sitting and using her hands, and I think that was the trigger point. I said, "Oh my God, what on earth is she doing? Why is she not speaking?" And it took me 3 to 4 months to find a place. That time, way back in 2004, there were very little knowledge or awareness about sign language. It took me 3 4 months where I went to friends, knowledgeable people, and they said, no, 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 this is not a language. It's just some gestures, deaf and dumb people use. Something's the problem. People didn't even know that they can't be they can't. Why are they called speech and hearing impaired? Is because they can't hear, that's why they can't speak. I mean, I had people telling me maybe they don't have tongues. So that's my background, how I started. I learned sign language and cleared the course, got many opportunities for jobs. I didn't want a job. Then I started meeting deaf leaders, deaf parents, deaf students, and that's where I learned. That's my background. I met them, understood their lives, and I looked at mine and I said, oh my God, if I can do something, I must do it. So at the Smart Plus Center, with just 5 students, I was the only teacher. I used to go back home and I used to remember how I was taught English, and I used to make my lesson plans, come back, and in actions, and I used to draw on the board, and in sign language I taught. Those 5 students became 10, 20, 100. Now every year across 9 of our centers, we are reaching out to over 1,000 children and youth every year. I'm really blessed. Speech and hearing impairment is an invisible disability. So most families, when they have this child, are unaware that there is something different or something is, missing in their child. Something is not right. Secondly, they're also in denial. It's only later when the child is not responding to claps or, is visually very sharp but is not able to answer and just making sounds, and that's when parents understand that there is something that needs to be done about their child. That is one. But you're saying early intervention, it is critical. The 0 to 5 years, when the child gets language acquisition, the maximum amount of cognitive growth happens between the ages of 0 to 5. I think if there is an early intervention, those things can be filled up, and the gaps that I have met with adult children, those definitely can be shortened, those gaps. So that is a critical point. The next steps they can take, if they have the options available to them. At this point, I think we're still at a very nascent age regarding speech and hearing impaired, support system for families. Mostly deafness is centered in economically underprivileged areas, remote places of the country, villages, urban slum areas. And there is this huge stigma and shame attached to any form of disability. So parents are not willing to openly go up to a doctor or a caregiver and say, my child is unable to speak, he can't hear, I think. So that is one thing. But yes, if the parents do find out, the first thing, as I was saying, is to be giving them options. First, to do an IEP, individual plan, an individual plan based on the needs of their child. It's not that every child can get assistive hearing aid, or every child must only do sign language. Give them options. They should be either Anganwadi workers who are sensitive towards children who are speech and hearing impaired. Hospitals, they should be either interpreters if the child is not so small, but an older child comes in with their parents. They have no option of communication, and the deaf child often doesn't can't express and is unable to understand. So it is very one-sided, if you understand what I'm trying to say. But for the parents, first thing, they should be given comfort, and they should be given hope that their children are not disabled, and that they are children with a different language perhaps, and we shouldn't be enforcing our spoken language on them. Please see what your child feels good about. The focus should be on the child. Because right at the moment we only have deaf schools, say maybe 500 odd, maybe some more deaf schools in the country, for some, as per the last census, over 28 lakhs. So you can imagine how to make schools. Why not mainstream schools? Mainstream schools also have special departments for children with disabilities. I think they do. But what happens to my kids who can't hear and speak is that there are no teachers who can communicate with them in sign language. So the first thing I would say is all teachers, special educators must have some basic understanding of Indian Sign Language, and people who are working especially for the deaf schools should have fluency in Indian Sign Language. But all education institutions, if they had teachers who were sensitized, number one, understood different disabilities and understood specifically speech and hearing impaired children, their needs, their challenges, their visual learning capacity, abilities, mainstream schools could be enrolling deaf children across the country, which at the moment is not happening because the ecosystem is not there to educate and teach deaf children. Others could be, well, if the child is deafened at a later age, for example, after language has been, after he or she has learnt the spoken language, say deafened due to illness, deafened at age 5 and later, age 10 and later, these kids can use hearing aid because their brains would have memory of the spoken voice. So that is also an intervention, but that is also individual to individual. Every child cannot be put a hearing aid and expect to understand, the other community, outside community. For people who want to start, please go ahead. There is ample opportunity, and deaf people in remote areas, smaller towns are wanting to be somewhere where they can learn. And I'll just say, you really don't need anything much. You need that grit and determination, and you need to learn the language of communication, and that's it. And there, all of us are here. We will support, to help you. I mean, let 1,000 flowers bloom in this country. That's number one. For educators, I will openly say this: you are anyway specialized teachers for all disabilities, especially even if you're focused on speech and hearing impaired children. You must learn sign language. How are you going to sit in a class and have deaf children? How are you going to explain concepts? You must learn it, and it is an additional skill for a teacher. And it's a communication skill that teachers must learn, and it'll be useful to them through their lives. And besides that, they will make close bonds with their students, which doesn't really happen without any heart to heart professional communication. We all remember our teachers from school. I'd like that to happen, and that can only happen if they can connect.